So this is the DJI Air 2S. I mean, overall, it's pretty great. It's more than just an incremental update to the Mavic Air 2. It's a whole new drone. But can it beat the Mavic 2 Pro? We're gonna dig in and find out. Now, anytime a company comes out with an S model or an incremental update, I always think of, hey, this is gonna be just something small, a little token update, like you're gonna make the props look a little bit different, which they have. But I can say that the Air 2S is an entirely different drone than the Mavic Air 2. And in several ways, this could be placed above the Mavic 2 Pro. I'm gonna explain why. All right, so the biggest news on the DJI Air 2S is this 1-inch sensor that's in here. Sensor size has gone from 1/2 inch to a full inch sensor. And DJI hasn't confirmed anything, but from what I can tell in testing, it's the same sensor as the Mavic 2 Pro. Now, one thing to remember though, is that there's a lot more to the final image than just what the sensor is. There's a whole chain of processing that goes on behind it. And because the Mavic 2 Pro was released 3 years ago, there's been a lot of upgrades and improvements in image processing. And I think it's found its way into the Air 2S. And one of the first things you're gonna notice when you shoot in 5.4K and look at it full screen is the amount of detail that's in there. There's no over sharpened sort of feel to it. It's just pure detail. This is the most natural and organic looking drone that I've seen. And I think that's because it's getting a 1-to-1 readout of that 5.4K sensor rather than a pixel bend mode like we saw on the old Mavic 2 Pro. And I can say that this is the first drone that I've shot with that completely avoids any sort of digital over sharpened look to it. It has beautiful detail without feeling over sharpened at all. I love the image coming off of this. Now there's a wide range of resolution and recording options from 5.4K all the way down to 1080p. And they're very easy to access in the new updated DJI Fly menu. All right, so let's talk about the lens on the front of this. This is a 22mm focal length, which is a good bit wider than the Air 2 and much wider than the 28mm of the Mavic 2 Pro. But usually with a wider field of view comes distortion. Many of you know the Mavic 2 Pro had a serious distortion problem, but I can say on the Air 2S there's almost zero distortion. And I think they've fixed this optically because even the raw photos have pretty much straight lines. So it's not something you're gonna have to deal with in post like you did with the Mavic 2 Pro. Now another thing on the camera, it does have a fixed 2.8 aperture. It's not adjustable, but I found the lens to be very, very sharp. Another update that this has is OcuSync 3, which they're calling O3 now, which is an upgrade from OcuSync 2 in the Air 2. So we're gonna go do some tests and see if the Air 2S can improve on the already great Air 2. Okay, so we're gonna take a small hike back into the woods so we can get away from any sort of interference. We're gonna fly each drone the same path. We'll see which one goes the furthest. We'll start with the Mavic Air 2. All right, so keep in mind this test is in a real world scenario. There's stuff blocking the line of sight. This isn't the maximum distance in a clear setting. We're 2,500 feet. I'm noticing a little bit of lag right here, about 2,500 feet. There is a train bridge right here, 3,000 feet away. Okay, so we just lost the signal at 3,400 feet. Now we're gonna test out the new Air 2S, see if it can beat 3,400 feet. We are coming up on that bridge. No dropouts yet, 3,400 feet. Okay, so we've officially passed what the Air 2 could do in this situation, so let's keep going. And here we made it just past 4,000 feet, which is about 17, 18% better than the Air 2. Now for color grading the Dlog image, the 10-bit color profile holds up really, really well. In fact, the SkyGrades LUTs that I helped develop for the Mavic 2 Pro work perfectly on the Air 2S. And so you can see right here how rich the image looks once they're applied. Now, as far as noise performance goes, the Air 2S is a big improvement over the Mavic Air 2. That's because the sensor is twice the size. The Air 2S is the first DJI drone that I've seen that has upward-facing optical sensors. It's gonna help a lot if you're flying anywhere below trees, and it actually helped me navigate some pretty tough areas, keeping me well below any sort of limbs that I may have hit. Now, what would I like to see changed? Obviously, this would be better if it had side sensors, but you can't do everything in a drone like this. Now, when you're shooting in log, you have to look at the log image on the screen. There is no way to see a higher contrast preview. So it is something I'd like to see added later. Now, I will say, because of this 5.4K sensor that's reading, it is not a quad bear sensor. The quad bear sensor that was in the Air 2 enabled it to shoot in the HDR mode, which was great. I loved that feature, but it still had some problems of its own, like auto exposure only, and it wasn't a very professional mode, but it did look good on a couple shots. The sensor in here is beautiful, but it does not do any HDR recording. So who is this drone for? Now, price-wise, the Air 2S sits just a little bit higher than the Mavic Air 2, but below the Mavic 2 Pro. But in image quality, it sits even beyond the Mavic 2 Pro, in my opinion. I think it's perfect for the person looking for the highest price to quality ratio, but should you upgrade? Really, I think if you have an Air 2 or a Mavic 2 Pro, you're in a good spot. These are all great drones. It doesn't necessarily mean you should upgrade, but if I were just getting into the drone market, it's the best feeling image that I've seen out of a drone so far. It just feels the most natural, the least over sharpened. This drone's the one to get, I believe, right now. Alright, so that's it for this one. I'll leave a link to all the SkyGrades LUTs and presets below. Until next time, have fun flying.